Hurry up, driver, give me two on the trip. My wife's going to the store for to draw some script. Lord, Lord, got them cold loading blues.
Good evening, everybody. Happy Labor Day. Welcome to Marmet for the Courage in the Hollers Monument Dedication and Unveiling event. My name is Kenzie New Walker, and I work for the West Virginia Mine Wars Museum as Executive Director, and I'm going to MC the event this evening. So first up to speak, we've got BJ Talbert from the Marmet Town Council.
Welcome you to the unveiling of the Blair Mountain Monument here in Marmet. We are absolutely thrilled that everyone, and Kenzie and everyone, got with us to do this here. It's an honor.
Thank you, BJ. BJ's been to a lot of meetings to make this monument happen. It's so good to be in Marmet. We are at the place of the beginning of the most significant labor rebellion in American history. 101 years ago, Unionist coal miners gathered by the thousands. Together, they tied red bandanas around their necks, formed a multiracial, multilingual redneck army, and began marching towards Mingo County. The Mine Wars Museum and its partners have been co-creating permanent monuments and history place markers in the rural landscape where this significant event took place, honoring the contributions Unionist miners made not only to West Virginia history, but to American history. Following in the footsteps of the Redneck Army, we are taking the Mine Wars Museum beyond its four walls in Matewan and working hand in hand with communities and descendants to create new sites of commemoration. This project is launching in two communities this Labor Day weekend, here in Marmet and also in Clothier. Many of you know, participated, or supported the Mine Wars Museum's efforts last year to commemorate and celebrate the Battle of Blair Mountain Centennial, or as many of you know it, Blair 100. The region was full with activities including new exhibits, walking tours, concerts, and even the recreation of the miners' 50-mile march, which the UMWA started right here where we are today. Air friend and core team member for both Blair 100 and Courage, Kyle Wormack, led a team of volunteers to develop a pop-up interpretive trail that was placed along the marching route. One of those temporary exhibits was placed right out here in Marmet. We heard from a lot of people after the Centennial what it meant to them to be a part of it, how it could drive the museum's work forward, and many of them came to us and said, "Make the markers permanent." Shortly after Blair 100 ended, the museum received news that we were one of 10 in the entire country to be awarded a grant from Monument Lab to create a commemorative project as part of the nationwide regeneration cohort. AIR Project is the only project rooted in Appalachia and celebrating organized labor, both past and present. I'd like to thank Monument Lab for their support, as well as the West Virginia Humanities Council and our Mine Wars Museum membership, all of which believed in us and helped us lift this effort off the ground. And one thing's for certain about the Mine Wars Museum: when we launch a new project, whether it's a new exhibit, an anniversary campaign, or monuments, we never go it alone. Like the miners who met in Marmet 100 years ago, we know we are stronger together when we have people in solidarity with us. I want to say thanks to those of you who attended community meetings, many of whom didn't miss a single one, lending your time and sharing your stories and your ideas. I'd also like to say thank you to our core team members, a lot of which who are here today: Aaron Bates, Brian Lacey, Terry Steele, Bobby Starnes, Kyle Wormack, Sean Slifer, and Kirsten Newton. It was only 7 months ago that the Mine Wars Museum and our core team were welcomed into the community center we're all in today. We didn't have this many people at the meetings though. We entered the doors with a blank slate, not knowing who would show up or what we'd build together. And today, we will unveil our work. These monuments and educational place markers made of Pittsburgh steel by union workers, steel that is likely cut from West Virginia coal. I couldn't be prouder of this project, where it's been and where it's going. And if you believe in this history and the power of unions like we do, which if you showed up today, I believe you do, I am inviting you to join the West Virginia Mine Workers Museum in this mission. Today is just the beginning of what's to come. The museum is launching our annual fundraising campaign this weekend and hopes to raise $40,000 to fund the next stage of our work, where we will continue building out the Miners March route as a labor history trail. And every dollar raised is another step on the march. Over the coming years, we're going to continue to illuminate the struggles and sacrifices of these Appalachian workers along the Miners Marching route, and one day we will get to Blair Mountain itself. These markers and monuments will pay homage to the unionist miners who paved the way for labor rights we are celebrating today and benefits we enjoy year-round. In closing, this project involved many people who shared rooms and conversations many times over the past few months, recalling and taking root in an American legacy not only worth remembering, but worth celebrating. And today, you're going to hear from only some of them. Voices from those who participated in the planning process, local, regional, and international UMWA leaders. But for now, I'm excited to introduce my friend and our next speaker, John Alderson, who is president of UMWA Local 6426.
I would like to thank everyone for coming out to this special occasion today. I would like to thank Mackenzie and her staff at the West Virginia Mining Wars Museum for getting this presentation started. I would like to also thank the town of Marmet for allowing us to use their facilities to have our meetings. I hope and pray that every union coal miner would make a special place in their heart for this monument. Without their sacrifices, and some gave their lives, we would not have what we have today. As a coal miner for 33 years, I would like to personally thank all those who sacrificed and dedication that they gave for us union today. And with that being said, I would like to say God bless coal miners, God bless the 100 mine workers, and God bless our president, Cecil Roberts. Thank you.
Next up, we've got Brian Lacey, who is a core team member and also UMWA Vice President of District 17.
Welcome to District 17, everyone. I would like to thank all the local unions from UMWA District 17 that participated in the community meetings and the community members that came to help put this project together. And I think once you see what's out here today, you'll be truly amazed. I'd also like to thank the Mine Wars Museum and Mackenzie and her team. They deserve a big round of applause for the work that they do. You know, there's not a whole lot taught in our school systems about the struggles that labor went through early on, including the Battle of Blair Mountain and the March. So now we'll have a place that hopefully people can go and they can learn about the miners, the leaders of the March, and the UMWA and its history. I get the privilege to introduce a hero of mine. He has been a fierce defender of workers' rights. He has testified many times on Capitol Hill on many topics from black loan to bankruptcy reform. He has negotiated some of the best contracts this union has ever seen. He led us through a string of coal company bankruptcies and helped secure the pensions and health care of over 100,000 of our UMWA members. He works tirelessly and travels this country on behalf of the UMWA members. It's my privilege and my honor to introduce the greatest labor leader in this country today, UMWA President Cecil Roberts.
Brian Lacey got just a tad carried away there. There's others that might argue about who the greatest labor leader in the country is at this point in time. But here in West Virginia, we kind of are partial to our people from West Virginia, right? So I just want to say thank you to Brian Lacey for serving on this, and Aaron Bates from our office in Washington, D.C. I want to point out that we have another international vice president with us today, Donnie Sams, right here in the Marmet, Chesapeake area. Donnie, I hope I don't get in trouble by taking this off here, but I can't hardly stand still. I just want to take a few minutes to say I should get absolutely no credit for this. All I did was say you helped them and you helped them and here's some money. And everybody else did the work. And I want to start out by just saying a few words about Mackenzie. This young woman, indeed, Mother Jones would love her. I'm telling you, she is a fierce advocate for people who work for a living, coal miners in particular. She has gone from one end of this state, indeed the country, talking about the museum and what it means to working people. And she's turned that museum into a force for working people in the state of West Virginia and indeed the entire nation. And we are so blessed that she is leading this. And this wouldn't have happened, in my opinion, without her and the museum. And by the way, the museum is housed in Matewan, West Virginia, in a building that's named after me. It's the C.C. Roberts building. When you get old and they think you're about to die, they put your name on something. And the only thing I'd like to say about my friend John, anybody that will get in the ring and fight Mike Tyson surely is not afraid of anything or anybody, and he did do that, by the way. Give John a round of applause. We have direct descendants here of people who started the union here. And Professor Keeney, Frank Keeney, was the president of District 17 at the time that this fight at Paint Creek and Cabin Creek started, which led to the Blair Mountain March, which of course led to Matewan. And I'm going to talk just a few minutes about the background here, if you don't mind. Is Professor Keeney still here? I was chatting with him when I came in. Stand up, give direct descendant of Frank Keeney right here. I just want to take a minute and talk about the Blizzard family. Most of you know I'm a direct descendant of the Blizzard family, but we have with us today my sisters and my niece, and they're all direct descendants of the Blizzard family. If you'd stand to be reckoned. And by the way, my niece is a history teacher at George Washington High School, carrying on a proud heritage. You stand up. Now we're going to do something real simple just to show you how important this is. How many of you in this room are descendants of coal miners? Your dad was a coal miner, your grandfather was a coal miner, your uncle was a coal miner, your grandfather was any of those. Stand up. And if you're standing up, hold your hand up. Now we're going to make this a little bit easier. This is just about everybody. Sit back down. If you don't, or if you are not a descendant of a coal miner, hold your hand up, because I don't think it's possible to be in the state of West Virginia and not be a descendant of a coal miner. It's almost impossible. One of the things I've always found interesting, every time somebody wants our endorsement for a political office, my dad was a coal miner, my grandfather was a coal miner, my cousin was a coal miner, my neighbor was a coal miner, so you should endorse me. I got news for you. That's everybody in the state of West Virginia. So I don't know how much weight that should carry unless your dad's a coal miner or your grandfather's a coal miner. I just want to quickly capsize this area for you. We were at Clothier on Saturday and dedicated a monument there. And I'm so proud. That was the end. In that area was the Blair Mountain. It was right past Clothier, a few more miles down the road. By the way, is anybody here that marched with us a year ago? How many people marched with us? How many of you made the entire 38 miles? I did. Terry did. Anybody else? Well, just give a round to the two of us that did that. Wait, Lacey did too. There's three of us. Stand up, Lacey. I know you. 3 people out of all of us in here walked the 38 miles. But let's back up just a tad. The union was formed in 1890, and about 12 years later, my great-grandmother Blizzard and my great-grandfather Blizzard were kicked out of their homes in Fayette County because they supported the union. The thugs came in and took their furniture and their food and threw it out in the street, actually in the yard, and told them to get out of town. That was the biggest mistake these coal companies ever made, because my great-grandmother Blizzard was fierce. And she was just as popular and was just as fierce as Mother Jones herself. They ended up living on Cabin Creek. They got blackballed. My great-grandfather couldn't get a job because he supported the union. Then, in 1912, a strike broke out on Paint Creek because those members, miners, were organized. If you don't know this, the miners on Cabin Creek were non-union at the time, but they wanted a union. So they said, well, those guys on Paint Creek are going to strike, and we're going to strike too, and we want union recognition. You didn't have a whole bunch of laws to go by in those days. You just did what you thought was right. There was no federal law that said you could organize a union. That didn't come along until 1935, so it was just you against the company trying to form a union. So do you know how many people were on strike? I bet you would never guess it. Between Cabin Creek and Paint Creek, I have read numbers that said 6,000 people were on strike in those two creeks. 6,000 people. Now the strike didn't go too well at first because everybody got evicted. All of those 6,000 families were evicted by the coal operators, the Bowenfeld thugs. Yes, your ancestors were dumped out on the street and told to get out of these company houses. And then they put their belongings on a train and hauled it off the company property. And there was one place only on Cabin Creek that supported the unions. Anybody here know where that was? Come on. Oh, you're cheating, Becky. You got it. But go ahead, tell everybody. Estelle. Why Estelle? Because the Blizzard family owned property in Estelle, and Cabin Creek's 15 miles long, and they said Estelle is the free state of Cabin Creek. It's the only place on Cabin Creek that co-operators didn't own. And if you supported the union, they wouldn't allow you to walk on their road. Now, can you imagine that? You cannot get on the road because we own that road. Mother Jones shows up, and you can just imagine what happened when she showed up. If anything, she was a great troublemaker, and she did not believe in fancy talk or trying to work something out peacefully. They would not let her walk up Cabin Creek. They made her get in the creek and wade the water all the way up to Estelle. Mother Blizzard and Mother Jones were fast friends. A lot of people don't know that. And they used to visit together in Mother Blizzard's home. And my grandmother, Harlow, when she was a child, remembered Mother coming to the house. And my impression was Mother Jones cussed all the time. And my grandmother, Harlow, said, no, she didn't. When she came to our house, she didn't curse. She just cursed when she was mad and making a speech, right? She looks around and says, these miners are going to lose this strike because they're letting these scabs work, right? So she calls for a rally at Cabin Creek, at the junction, and 6,000 people attended that rally. Does anybody here know what she said? Now, I have to curse just a little bit to tell you what she said. Would anybody be offended? Well, I imagine that before you go home, you turn your television on, you'll hear something worse than this. So don't get mad at me, okay? And I'm just quoting Mother Jones. She stood up in front of 6,000 people, and this is what she said. Go home and arm yourself. Go up Cabin Creek and Paint Creek and do what? What do you think she said? Kill all those son of a bitches. Burn all their tipples, and you'll win this strike. And guess what? The strike turned into mine wars on Paint Creek and Cabin Creek. I hate to inform you of this, but the state government didn't support the workers. Gee, what a surprise. The federal government ignored the plight of these coal miners. In those days, thousands of miners were dying every single year in the coal mines, and nobody cared. In World War I, you would have been safer on the front lines of the battlefield than working at a coal mine up Cabin Creek, because you were going to get killed or injured. So here comes a new governor, Hatfield, and he made everybody go back to work. We didn't get a union up in Cabin Creek, but we had a start of a union. And Bill Blizzard, as a teenager, ran for office as District 17 and won. So you got Frank Keeney as president, Bill Blizzard as an officer as a teenager. And Mother Blizzard still hadn't got over the fact she got evicted from her house. And then a fight breaks out in Colorado, and the Baldwin-Fells thugs go there, and the Baldwin-Fells thugs shoot into the tent colony in Ludlow, kill a 12-year-old boy with a machine gun. The Baldwin-Fells scud, yes, the people from down in Bluefield, West Virginia, killed this young kid in the middle of the day. They went down and murdered the UMWA leader in that tenant colony. It was a Greek colony. His name was Louis Tikas. If you ever make your way to Trinidad, Colorado, there's a huge statue that the Greek government built, because the Greeks love their union people, right? And it's standing right in the middle of Trinidad. There is a huge monument there of women and children who were burnt alive by these same thugs. After they killed this young man, after they murdered the strike leader, they came down off the hill with kerosene and set the tents on fire. And in one of those tents, they had dug a shelter, and the women and children were in that shelter, and they were burned alive. That's the history of the coal industry, by the way. And I'm not saying they're like that now, but they want you to know they were always just wonderful people, right? Always here to help, right? But then Mother Jones, who had been out there and gone to jail, called all of the strikers together in Trinidad. And she called all the women, the wives, the daughters of the miners, the mothers, the neighbors, the kinfolk. And there were literally thousands there. And if you don't remember anything else, remember this. Mother Jones looked out on the crowd, and she said, "Sure you lost. Sure you lost. But they had bayonets. And all you had was the Constitution of the United States. In any conflict between the Constitution and a bayonet, the bayonet will win every time. But," this is the big but you must fight. You must fight and win. You must fight and lose. But above all, you must fight. West Virginia, I know sometimes we get frustrated and angry about the way things are going, but we can't quit fighting. We must fight and win. We must fight and lose, but we must fight for the middle class and the working class of this state. So how did this Fire Mountain March start, which we honored last year and honoring today? This started because we had one politician in this state that represented working class people, and that was Sid Hatfield down in Matewan. Sid Hatfield took part in the Matewan massacre, and about a year later he was gunned down on the courthouse steps in the middle of the day. And with his friend Ed Chambers and their wives, the thugs shot them about 5 or 6 times. Ed Chambers rode down the steps. And these thugs walked down the steps on the courthouse steps, by the way. And Ed Chambers' wife tried to cover him up and said, "Please don't shoot him again. Please don't shoot him again." And that thug shot him in the head 6 times. I want you to think about something. Nothing came about. Those people were not prosecuted. Those people never spent an hour in jail. They were found innocent. They were found innocent. That was August the 1st. By the end of August, people were gathering up down here at Lynn's Creek and said, "We're going to Logan County. We've had enough. We're not going to take it anymore. We're going to hang the sheriff of Logan County by a sour apple tree. We're going to keep on marching till we get to Mingo County. We're going to break open the jails down there and let our brothers and sisters be locked up in this system out of jail, and the union's going to prevail, and we're going to have safer minds, and we're going to get decent wages and decent benefits. Well, the federal government came in and broke this up. The only time an airstrike has ever been called within the continental borders of the United States was bombs were dropped on those strikers as they marched. But they kept on marching. And the only thing that stopped them was the United States Army, because they wouldn't fight people that they had served with. World War I, it ended. Many of these marchers served in the United States Army. One last thing for you to remember. In this room, we're the most patriotic people on earth. If you don't believe that, look at the statistics. Not just here, but in Appalachia. When there's a war, we fight, and we die in higher numbers on a percentage basis than anybody else in the United States. Any other state in the Union, this is the most patriotic state. So when we stand up and say we want our government to protect us, we want our government to defend our rights, freedom of speech, freedom of assembly, right to protest for right, that's part of the Constitution. We should be granted that right. And these marchers believed that's what they were fighting for. But I want to tell you there's good news here. 14 years later, after that march, the UMWA, after we got the right to organize by Congress in 1935, Johnny L. Lewis built the CIO. And the UMWA was the largest union in the world, with over 800,000 members. John L. Lewis said it's not enough for coal miners to have a union. Everybody needs a union. Everybody needs a union, was John L.'s philosophy. So he formed the CIO and organized the auto workers, the rubber workers, the textile workers. There wouldn't be a steel workers if it wasn't for mine workers. There wouldn't be an auto workers if it wasn't for coal miners. And John L. assessed the coal miners in this country enough money to organize those unions. So yes, who built the middle class? We did. And I want you to know something. 75% of Americans say today that unions are good. That unions are good. The view of organized labor is at the highest peak it's ever been. It's ever been. So why isn't everybody in a union? Because we got rotten laws and we need labor law reform. Right today we're on strike in Alabama because they're still living in the 20s in Alabama. They're still using the sheriffs, the state police, and the governor's office to defeat us. They're going out in West Virginia, Kentucky, and Pennsylvania, and Ohio, advertising for replacement workers, just like they did in 1912 here. But we're going to win that fight because we're the United Mine Workers of America. So when you see this monument, just remember, every one of you, have the blood flowing through your veins of those marchers. Those marchers built the middle class. Those marchers stood up for what was right. And what do unions do? We take rotten jobs and make them good. There were no jobs in America worse than coal mining. There were no jobs in America that paid less than coal mining. They had no health and safety. They had no health care. I was born in 1946 in a company house by a company doctor because they didn't have health care, but my daddy was on strike. My daddy was on strike at that time for the health retirement fund that we just got through fighting for again. And we won. People say you can't win that fight, but we did. They said you can't do anything about bankruptcy judges. We told the judges where to go. I won't repeat that kind of language again. We stood up against the bankruptcy courts and won. We stood up against the coal companies and we retained our health care in 2017. 22,600 people in this country have health care today because they belong to a union. And then we kept fighting. And then in 2019, 100,000 coal miners who were retired. Donna Kay's mother gets health care from the funds. There's people in here right now getting health care from the funds. Not because the coal companies wanted you to have it, because the union fought for it. If you've got good health care, there's a chance the union got it for you. God bless all of you.
I don't care what they say, no one can hardly follow up with Cecil Roberts. Let's give him another hand, please. All right, y'all, it's about that time. We're gonna make our way outside and unveil this monument for everyone to see. I want the folks who were actually in the monument or came to a community planning meeting to get up front with us. All right, can y'all hear me? Yes. Okay. So as we talked about, this monument was community-driven, community-inspired, and we've got several people here that participated in these meetings. If you were one of those people, please raise your hand so people can see you. This wouldn't have happened without each and every one of you. I also want to recognize we've got James Goltz here with us, who is a board member of the Mother Jones Museum in Mount Olive, and we actually had one of their members, Loretta Williams, pose for this monument. Without further ado, we've got guys here ready to unveil. Should we count us down? Can we start from 5? Yeah. All right, ready? 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Thank you, everybody, for coming out. If the folks that posed would come up for a photograph in front of their silhouettes, we would love that.
I'm just an old coal miner and I labor for my bread. This story in my memory I've here told. For the sake of wife and baby, how a miner risks his life for the price of just a little lump of coal. Don't forget me, little darling, when they lay me down to rest. Tell my brothers all these loving words I say.